Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Illini Audible Podcast. My name is Saeed Bravo, joined alongside my colleague and friend Cooper O'Kelly. Cooper, welcome back. Very pleased to have you back on. It's been a while since we've done one of these in this particular platform. I know we've been going back and forth, but obviously on different platforms. How have you been, man?
I've been good. I've been good. I've been staying busy. I've been watching this Fighting Illini men's basketball team take care of business. Yeah, chilling.
Yeah, man. No, it's good. It's February. You can feel the weather getting better. Although some may say it's fall spring, but whatever, right? But the basketball season is certainly something that we've been keeping an eye on, and certainly you, obviously, as someone who does radio and is on all these different platforms doing Illini sports talk, and me,
Yeah.
obviously, as a reporter covering the team for the champagneroom.com. This team, last time we talked about them was, we had just gotten off of the Keaton Wagler game. It's obviously been a while. Last night took care of business over at USC with quarterback one Caleb Williams in attendance. That's a sidebar, by the way, because obviously the huge takeaway was that what this Illinois team looked like when they got into full formation, just everybody healthy, and obviously it was encouraging to see. What was your general reaction, or what was your general observations from what transpired last night over in Southern California?
Oh man. Excuse me. That was just an absolute beatdown, right? I think
Yeah.
that's got to be everybody's number one takeaway. I said it earlier, but Illinois just took care of business, and they did so in an impressive fashion. I think the offense obviously stands out. If you drop 100 points plus in a game, while as a team shooting 50% from the floor, 40% from three, and 90% from the free throw line, that's pretty impressive. That's the first time that a Big Ten team has done that and scored 100 points since pre 2000. So that is a
Yeah.
pretty. We've seen some good teams come through the Big Ten, and none of them have been able to do that. So that offense was ridiculous.
No question. To me, the biggest thing, obviously, is you got, and before we even got into this talking about this basketball team, Stojakovic, Boswell out of the lineup. We saw what they look like at East Lansing. We saw what they looked like when they came back the following week, and they had that discouraging loss against Wisconsin in overtime. Both of those losses, by the way, in overtime. But obviously, that big caveat the team just wasn't healthy. You had two of your perimeter guards rather out, and we saw what the turbulence that brought. And then last night, you just have a total beatdown, a drop of 100 burger. It's so encouraging to me. That part that stood out was the ball movement and just the imposing of their will. They did pretty much anything they wanted. And in the first couple of minutes, they didn't even shoot the ball well. They just had possession after possession, and they were physically imposing. It felt like USC just wasn't a match. And honestly, they probably aren't, right? Like, let's be honest, right? Yes, there is a lot of mileage on the bodies that does present a challenge to this team, to any team that has to go West Coast. But obviously, USC isn't a team that's they're on the fringe of making the Big Ten tournament. This is very much, we're on the watch of what's going to happen when they come back to Champaign and they face Michigan.
Yeah, that is the one that I feel like a lot of people have had circled on their calendars pretty much since the schedule came out. But real quick about USC, like they're not amazing, but I will say like they're last time I checked, they're still slated to be like a 9, 10, 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's still going to end up going down as a quad one win for Illinois,
Yeah.
which I think is still very impressive. But personally, like looking ahead to Michigan, I have been trying for weeks to like, okay, like you don't want to skip ahead and think about what's too far in the future, but it's so hard, right? When you have the undisputed best team in the country coming to play you on your home court, how could you not look forward to that? And I've been thinking about this game for weeks, and I cannot be more excited.
It's no doubt that State Farm Center is going to be rocking on February 28th. I believe that's the day when they play. But besides the point, because it's incredibly exciting. You just hope that you can continue going like this. Obviously, take care of business against UCLA, and you can't. They talk. These coaches talk about it all the time. It's the Big Ten. You can never count on winning, just automatically winning. But you obviously, if they are healthy, that's the thing. That's the key. Staying healthy and being wired in that way. Because we saw what they looked like without a Kylan Boswell, without an Andrei Stojakovic, the mess that was. I guess, what did you make of that stretch that we had watching this particular team play without those two stars? Because you need at least
Yeah,
one of them at all times.
100%. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is defensively, you just take such a big hit already without Kylan. But yeah, when you added Andre to that injury report as well, for that Wisconsin game, the Indiana game, um, it's unfortunate, right? Like when here's my thing. Brad playing 6 players in that loss to that was
Yeah.
Wisconsin. That was unfortunate, right? Because he basically is coming out and saying like, I do not think that Brandon Lee or Mihailo Petrovic are playable in important, impactful Big Ten games.
Yeah.
And that shows you how at full strength, this team is unbelievably deep. They have tons of scoring options, what have you. Once they get past that 8-man rotation, there it's unfortunate that they were forced to be in that spot
Yeah.
because Brad just doesn't trust those guys enough to play them. So I think you saw it at the end of the Wisconsin game, especially by the end of overtime. Keaton Wagler is exhausted. Tommy Slov is exhausted. Like you can tell that they just look so tired. And now like having both those guys back, and you're essentially this is going to be the rotation, I would imagine, unless we get some Ty Rogers miracle within the next couple of weeks. But you're gonna have an 8-man rotation heading into the NCAA tournament, which that's pretty deep for NCAA tournament standards. Like eight man rotation, you're consistently playing that many guys. That is a lot of guys to be playing in a single elimination tournament like that. But I think that's such a luxury for Illinois because all of these guys can play and they contribute in such a big way when they're out there.
The lingering question will be, can they stay healthy? Can they stay healthy? And that's the biggest thing, right? Because we did see what the team looks like you mentioned, when it's only a 6-man rotation, and it is unfortunate. Obviously, it's unfortunate how these things kind of shake out when it comes to that. When it comes to who are you going to play, when these games really do matter, and obviously, like you said, actions speak louder than words. He's not putting in any Mihailo Petrovic, which is something to me that it strikes me as surprising at this point in the season. I know that we should be talking about how good this team has been, and there should be no reason for us to harp on things that are necessarily negative about this program simply because of how much winning they have been doing. But the reality is that there was an investment in a guy like Mihailo Petrovic, and you should have questions if you're a fan and you're watching your team play and some guy is injured, whether it be one of your perimeter guards or one of your bigger guys, right? And you should have questions about why Mihailo Petrovic isn't playing. And obviously, there are a lot of things that we would be uncovering that, that access simply doesn't allow us to. So it is unfortunate in that way. But, that's just something that you do have to keep in mind as this season continues to unfold. Obviously there's always turbulence in all of these seasons. Every championship team, we saw this 2 years ago with Terrence Shannon Jr. having a hiatus that he had to go to because of legal trouble. But this is obviously something that you look at and you hope that it doesn't come back to bite them in the butt, right? Like that's just the reality. But on the bright side, you have so many shooters that are shooting really well throughout the course of the game, and a team that can impose their will. Defensively, they've been playing excellent and just dominant. I mean, we've talked about his number one team in the Kempom era, right? Like the number one offense ever right? And that how incredible that is, and how much credit needs to go to a guy like Tyler Underwood, Brad Underwood as well, and there's just how much success that this program has seen over the course of a large number of years last and in the tenure, but specifically this season, this is no doubt has to be Brad Underwood's best team.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. When you look at the offensive numbers, they're just staggering. I think after last night's win, they shot up to 131.9 adjusted offensive efficiency per KenPom. They're the first team in, I want to say, yeah, there we go. Have it right there. The only 130 plus offensive efficiency rating in the past 30 years. So this is
Yeah.
a historic offense. I think what sets this team apart from, let's say, the Elite Eight team back 2-3 years ago is depth, in my opinion. And that team was great too, but they were led by one alpha who would go out there and just dominate. Nothing against Marcus
Yeah.
Damask. He was a great secondary guy. Coleman Hawkins was right behind him. But if you look at this year's team, yeah, Keaton is having a remarkable season, but there's nights where he's going to not play as well, and they're still going to be fine because Andre will pick up the slack or Merck will pick up the slack. Like this team and its depth is just what sets it on another level
Yeah.
to me. And I agree with you. It's the best. It's the best team that we've seen Brad have. I think like look at last night. 7 double-digit scores. 7 guys. That's
Ridiculous.
ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And when you have Jake Davis going 4 for 4 from 3 and Ben Hummerkaus turning in an efficient night, I think those 2 guys are just as important as anybody else because if those 2 guys are hitting their shots, especially from the perimeter, you can't stop this offense. You just simply can't.
There's also, like you mentioned, yeah, like the one of the biggest things as well, like you mentioned, that the depth continues to be a theme. To me, the order in terms of who runs the point and how it goes is you saw it with you've seen it with Keaton Wagler. Obviously, he's the number one option, number one threat right there, just simply because of how good he is, and just incredible story there. But David Merkovich coming at number two has been pretty remarkable. How good he is too, just because of how emotional. Like this is a guy that when you met him, it felt like he's clearly an 18-year-old. He's clearly a kid. We've seen his comments in the media and stuff, and what like how he's very childlike, but on the court, man, how good he's been and how mature he's been. Brad Underwood told us a story after the Indiana game about David Merkovich taking the responsibility and taking a large part of the blame after losing at Wisconsin. And that game, it's not like it was his fault. Like who you pin the blame on? Yes, sure. Injury, that was a part of every team. It deals with that though. And you would honestly say coaching matters, right? And that's, to me, that's that falls not necessarily as much on the individual players as it did fall on the decisions and the coaching decisions. But David took responsibility. He sent a message, a paragraph to Brad Underwood after that game, and he just explained how he felt and how he felt like he needed to do more and how he vowed to do better next time. And you've seen how good he's been. He's a freshman, 18-year-old. Give him some, everybody should give him some slack, but he's hard on himself, and that you've seen that translate to the court. That's my number two guy right now. And obviously you have Boswell and Andrej. Those four guys that you can have at the point. It's pretty remarkable, I think. That it's just incredible.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, if you look at things in terms of like versatility as a whole offensively, you have so many guys that are capable of not only scoring down low in the post and attacking the rim, but also shooting from range. Keaton obviously is the number one example from that. It feels like no matter where he's at, as soon as he crosses that half court line, he can just shoot it from wherever.
Yeah.
And he's so
Insane.
great at attacking the cup too. Kylan is not as much of a shooter, but he can hit the catch and shoot and he scores really well and at an efficient clip. down low as well. And then when you have guys like Merck and both Ivisic twins that they're big guys, but they can all shoot, it's barbecue
Yeah,
chicken.
it's, it's barbecue chicken, man. No, but another thing that I did want to talk about, touch just a little bit on this particular team is the fact that how good these guys have been at sticking to their roles and sticking to their lanes. Because we've seen Ben Humrickhouse last season; he couldn't guard anyone. Last season, he was awful guarding, but he was consistently in the starting lineup, and there was something somewhat uninspiring about him. Now he's a piece that comes off the bench, and he's one of probably the best defender besides Boswell. He's probably the best defender on that team, and you've seen him consistently make an impact in the minutes that he's been in, and you feel pleased about the effort that he's putting in. And Jake Davis is a guy who I thought was, oh, cool. This guy has a cool, gets the hair. It's all cool. It's a kind of a gimmick. Like, no. This has been one of the centerpieces of this team. And Brad Underwood has done an excellent job building this program to be what it is right now. And Jake Davis, as a sharp shooter, known for his corner threes, you saw him in a huge spot to take Michigan State to overtime with those 2 free throws, and he delivered. To me, that is just impressive when you're in that building against everybody against you pretty much, and you still make those 2 shots in one of the biggest spots of the season. Just incredible.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's something Brad touched on recently, I believe, in one of these pressers, saying that he believes that those 2 guys, Davis and Humrickhouse,
Yeah.
are some of the best role players in the entire country. And I don't see why he would be wrong for any reason. Like, he said that, which makes sense, in today's NCAA, in today's like world of college basketball, it's hard to find guys that are going to want to come to your team and play a role. If it's available to you, you can transfer wherever you want. You can take X amount of money to go play anywhere and try and be maybe a number 1 guy or chuck up 10 shots a night. But Jake Davis and Ben Humrickhouse, they're very unselfish, and they have perfectly aligned themselves with this team in a way where like it feels like seamless. No matter who's out there on the floor, even if Ben and Jake are considered role players, it doesn't really feel like it. They feel like high level, obviously Big Ten basketball players that can score at will. And when they're both on, it is just great to watch. Like, is there anything more beautiful than a Jake Davis corner 3?
Everybody loves that. That's why Illinois had the wig night that they had. It was
Yeah,
pretty
that was
popular
sick.
amongst fans. And so you did see that the Orange Krush had the wigs, and everybody was there kind of. It was like I said, cool gimmick, but it was more than that. It was generally like it is, Jake Davis admitted it was weird, but the fact that is not only just a gimmick, that is somewhat of a symbol of what he's meant to this program in just less than 2 years. I think it's pretty remarkable. And the fact that he's been backing that up with his play, I think is also a remarkable thing. But speaking of the Orange Krush, I do, we've been, you and me, we are on that Twitter, right? Like we're on X, where, we linger in there. We spend our time sometimes too much on that application, as bad as it is for both of us, for everyone really in this world, really. But, we've seen the discourse that has been happening about this Orange Krush and the deal that obviously that Wisconsin game, and how Orange Krush was kind of being attacked somewhat, if that's the right word. I would say that is the right word on X, because of that, and because it was a relatively uninspiring crowd. I would say I do have a take about the Orange Krush and about all of that discourse, because it has been something that I thought about, especially this season. As a
Let's hear it.
reporter, I've been to, a couple road games, right? In football, basketball, most notably, and obviously this is the pinnacle of the Big Ten. You can't really compare it to anything. Going to Mackey Arena was really remarkable. And you saw the atmosphere of that game, and how the student section is organized, and how everybody there is really into it. I personally was, last season, I went to the Illinois Northwestern game, the one that Illinois dropped with KJ and Will playing. And I was incredibly impressed by that, how small but how mighty Welsh Ryan Arena is when it is packed, when the team is at least pretty good. You and me were at Camp Randall Stadium, and it was our first time experiencing jump around, and we saw how that place shakes, right? So there are a couple of things that I want to touch on. I do think that Illinois just generally, there is something missing about traditions over at State Farm Center, over at Geese Memorial Stadium. What do we have? The Willem Tell, like, oh, cool, I'm gonna grab the person next to me and we're gonna jump around and hop on one foot. Well, yeah, well, cool. I mean, we're so into that. I don't know how many people are actually into that. And so my point being, right, traditions is one thing too, but obviously there is a lot of there's stadiums that we've been to. I thought the Indiana game, Indiana Illinois, was remarkable. Obviously that's football, is different, but the point is that I've been to a lot of stadiums at this point, not a whole lot, but a good amount. And the one thing that I think people should take into account is that, well, yes, I do think that the organization of the student section is somewhat of a problem when you have a lot of the older people being seated generally around the court. I think while that is a lingering issue, I would tell you guys to look up instead of looking down at the fans. Because when you look up, the video board does not necessarily help at all times. Let me explain. And I do know people who work at the video board department. I do know this is no shot to them, but there are moments inside a State Farm Center where you're sitting there, you're waiting to get pumped up. I know they added a DJ or an usher or a host that they've put, right? But there are moments where stadiums and stadium operations decide that they want to, feature the fan. They want to have fun with the fans. And State Farm Center just leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to what it does in terms of the video board. There are times where fans should be getting riled up ahead of a break from timeout, or when you go out of a timeout, and you just don't see it. You just don't see the fans being pumped up. You don't see them getting any help, because obviously it is on the fans to be there and cheer. But that is why you have the video board, to help you. And it feels like a lot of the time there just isn't enough to pump up the crowd. Maybe some of the games and gimmicks that they do at State Farm Center need to be reevaluated and maybe rolled into something else. I do also understand that the video board is something that they use for revenue as well, where you put your ads there as well. But there needs to be some way to get the fans more involved in just a little golf game that you do on the court. Like, there needs to be more. And I think that is my take, that I don't think you should be looking down at the fan and telling them, you guys need to be riled up all the time. You should be looking up and saying the video board should be doing more to get these fans into the game.
Interesting. That's not the dialogue that I've been seeing on Twitter. I feel like I haven't seen as many people mention that video. That's interesting to think about. I gotta pay more attention to that video board next time I'm out there at SFC.
One of the things that it's something that stood out to me because of my experience going to Mackey, going to Welsh Ryan Arena, going to all these other places, all these other arenas that you just notice. And obviously you probably cannot compare the Chicago Bulls Stadium, but Allstate Arena, or excuse me, United Center does an incredible job with its video board. And obviously it's different because it's professional, but those are just general things that I have noticed about this. I don't know what is your take on the whole discourse, Cooper?
I think they need to figure out a better way to try and quality control the people that are making it into that lower bowl, because there's not a lot of people that get to do that. And I think oftentimes, especially with the Wisconsin game, what everybody was saying was that, hey, if you look right now at a majority of the fans in the crowd, they are completely not paying attention. There's people on their phones, like all sorts of stuff like that. And I think that's a big issue. I think like if there was a better, excuse me, if there was a better way to try and make sure that you're getting the most diehard fans in there, or if the reps of Orange Krush in general are just more dialed into the games and have like a bigger dedication to things, I think that would make a big difference. Also, I don't know if this would ever happen, but I think that it would be really cool if the entire lower bowl was completely students. And that would make Illinois probably one of the most like feared places to play, which will never happen. Like money making wise,
That's the thing.
Whitman would never make that entire lower bowl students, but that would be unbelievable. It's not realistic whatsoever, but I think that would be unreal. And then I guess between my two options, the more feasible one is just trying to make sure that there's like a quality control in place to make sure that the diehard fans who are actually going to get into things during the game are the ones that get picked to be in that lower bowl. I also just to get fans more riled up. I agree with you in terms of video board, but like why is like drinking banned while you're waiting to get into Orange Krush? I feel like you should want to get them all liquored up. They come in, they're hyped, they're ready to jump around, scream. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you know what they say. I mean, the liquid brave will make you do things that, maybe that is right. If someone goes in there and has maybe too much, then that is the concern. But no, I totally agree with you. That's the unfortunate part. Money talks and money will always reign. Despite this being sports, Cooper, this is still a business. There's a reason we're doing a podcast right now. There's a reason so many people out in the media work in sports, cover sports. It's still money. People care about this. And unfortunately, the ones with power, the ones with the money, are the boosters and the older people who may or may not, want to be the ones to be all fired up all the time and being stand up all the time. It's an unfortunate thing, but obviously there are certain, I do think that maybe the whole discourse and maybe everything that's happened throughout the course of this season may inspire some change. Who knows? But it could happen. Yeah, and just don't know. But moving on, I think we there has been things that have happened in football that last time we talked, we were talking about what it could look like in terms of changes, and earlier we were not sure about what would happen on the defensive side of the ball. Well, now we know a whole lot more, and the last time we recorded a podcast, we were talking presuming that Aaron Henry would be back as defensive coordinator. The very next day, he took another job at Notre Dame as the defensive co-defensive coordinator, defensive backs coach, which I think technically is a lateral move, but you would mostly describe that as a move below, although it is a good program. So kind of a double-edged sword there. But obviously a lot of changes. It was very strange. We attended, both of us were there for Brett Bielema's press conference where he kind of teased a lot of changes on the defensive side of the ball. But not only that, he also teased that maybe that guy would happen to be from the NFL. And just because he said he would announce it after the Super Bowl, we of course know that that is not the case. Cooper, what is your reaction to just generally all the changes that have happened on defensive coaching staff, and also specifically, obviously Bobby Hawk? And I mean, we've talked about this on other platforms, but just generally for the sake of this conversation, what have you seen in terms of what it how you feel about all these changes?
Listen, I mean, it all starts with Aaron Henry making that move, and I think you're right. It's not I wouldn't consider it to be a lateral move. It seems like it might have been a little bit of a step down, but like you said, we've talked about it, and my stance is like at a certain point, especially in sports, especially in coaching, it happens with athletes as well. Like you get to a point where both sides are just kind of ready to move on. And you saw throughout especially the tail end of the season where the defense went out there and laid an egg against Washington and Wisconsin that led to pretty brutal losses, and the fans were upset. They wanted Henry gone. There was a lot of criticism, and I think like at a certain point you just kind of have to accept at a certain, like, sometimes two sides just things have run its course, and I think it was just time for Henry and the Illini to go their separate ways. For him, I mean, that's a great opportunity still. He's going to one of the most historic, best college football programs in the country at Notre Dame. He's learning under a great coach in Marcus Freeman. And now the Illini have their new play caller in Bobby Hauck, who I'm pretty excited about. I think like you said, it seemed like we were going to get somebody coming down from the NFL level. Um, According to Coach Bielema, he said in his most recent presser, which was like introducing Bobby Hauck, like this was the only guy he offered the job to. This was the only guy he had in mind. So I mean, it kind of seems like us journalists might have just taken that Super Bowl tease and just kind of ran away with it and maybe jumped to conclusions, or he could just be blowing smoke and maybe there was another guy in mind and it didn't work out. We're never going to know, but what we do know for certain is Coach Hauck is here in Champaign. He's going to be calling the plays on defense, and it's going to be a new era for Illinois football, one that I'm obviously a reporter for the football team, but just as someone who likes to see Illinois succeed, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a good move, and I just kind of appreciate the approach that Bielema has been taking, and he's looking for leader of men, like guys who have past like head coaching experience in a lot of scenarios or play calling experience, and he's taking more of a hands-off approach. He's come out and said that he's going to be the CEO of this program, and he's more than comfortable with letting his coordinators and his position coaches kind of taking the brunt end of all the training and decisions and play calling.
No question. I mean, to me, the most shocking part about this hire was that it is pretty much the total opposite. It makes sense, right? Sometimes, when you go from one spectrum, you go to the other. It's like any other hire that you see anywhere in sports. But to me, the most surprising part of this whole thing is that it pretty much feels like Bielema is just going to hand the keys to Bobby Hauck and say, "Hey, you're gonna this is your side of the ball. This is your gig. Obviously, I'm gonna oversee these things, this operation. But man, this is your side. This is your side of the ball." It's kind of how Barry Lunny's also kind of he's in charge of the offenses. Hopefully, we don't see changes on that side of the ball, but you never know, just because of how the timing has worked. No one really expected any changes in terms of defensive coordinator at this point, but you see in terms of what you talked about the potential changes and how this was the only guy he talked to. Well, we'll never know. Well, we will never know. And Bielema likes to say things, and sometimes you got to read between the tea leaves. But obviously, Ronnie Bradford comes in as the secondary coach. He was a 10-year NFL defensive back. He's also been with Montana. So Roger Cooper, inside linebackers coach, also came from Montana. So he's bringing in his guys. Like, he's bringing in his staff. He's going to put them in Champaign, and it's going to be, the concerning part is going to be now the personnel, because it looks like you have a clear plan, and you have the 3-3-5 plan that's going to be implemented with Bobby Hauck. And he talked about in his presser about how he doesn't necessarily confine in to that, just, okay, we're 3-3-5, this is how we play. But it is a change in philosophy. It is more aggressive. The part that you hope that they continue to get right is the personnel, because like we've talked about, I don't think they thought that Angelo McCullum was going to, obviously they probably understood that, things can change on a dime because of college football in 2026. But I really don't think they thought they were going to lose Angelo McCullum. And you see them, they lost JoJo Hayden. They lost a bunch of guys. And now you have to have these young guys really step up. And so that, to me, that's going to be the next step in terms of, okay, well, I'll see it I'll believe it when I see it. And it's going to be a while, but it'll be certainly interesting to follow. I envy you, Cooper, because you're going to be here next year and you're going to follow it step by step. And it'll be interesting, the ebbs and flow of this defense, because I'm sure there's going to be turbulence.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be, and there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think, with there being
Yep.
a learning curve. I think what helps this defense a lot and what's going to help them is the fact that you have guys like Matthew Bailey and Xavier Scott who they're guys that are going to be moving on to the NFL after next season. They're guys that have experience in this program and are going to be, those veteran leaders on the defensive front. Yes, I think you're 100% right that it hurts this team, especially when presumably, and you're right, Coach Hauk said that he's not married to the 3-3-5. Everybody wants to put a label calling it the 3-3-5, but he said that he's going to run the defense that his personnel dictates. I would imagine he's going to run the 3-3-5 at least a good chunk of his plays. I think that's a pretty safe bet. So you're right. It's unfortunate that guys like Angelo McCullum and a bunch of guys throughout that defensive line ended up transferring out before the Illini could make this new hire, because this is a defensive scheme that relies on having big guys up front on that line to plug up holes and fill gaps. So that's going to be interesting. I know that, they still have some scholarship spots available that they're kind of holding on to see if anything floats their way via the transfer portal. But that's something that we're definitely going to have to monitor. And you're right that there's going to be turbulence. I think that that's natural in any program when you're going through some changes. The beauty of this schedule is that their 3 non-conference games are right in a row to start the season, all of them being at Geese Memorial Stadium. So if there are some, if there's a learning curve to getting used to this new scheme or having a new coach at the helm, ideally they're going to be able to get it out of the way in those first 3 games. And yeah, I could not be more excited to cover this team next year. But come on, you're still going to be tapped in even if you're not covering it.
100%. I will be. That wasn't an admission on whether or not I was going to be locked in. I just mean I envy you because I know you're going to be up in the press box and I'm just going to be like everyone else at that point. But no, I do think, and another thing that I want to add though, that this is to me, and I said this on your radio show, Cooper, last week, but
Yeah.
to me, this point in time in this program with Brett Bielema at the helm, this is very much the offseason of change, and this is very much an inflection point in the program. And, at a time where we thought, we would say goodbye to Luke Altmaier, we would say goodbye to guys like Gabe Akis, to a time where Illinois goes from being a bowl contender every year and, maybe catapults into the college football playoff. And they did college football playoff conversation, at least preseason. Obviously things didn't unfold the way that they wanted it to, but this is one of the most important off seasons. In every offseason is important, but this one is incredibly important. And the rest of it is going to determine how the next 3 years go. And I say that because this is the offseason of full change. Bobby Hauck needs to work out. Bobby Hauck cannot be a guy that ends up being another, and I'm not saying they're so different, but it cannot be a bust of a hire. Thad Ward ended up leaving for Kansas State. The guy you replace him with has to be here for a while and has to be a good recruiter. Get a guy that can, help out Khalil Valentine. There are so many things that are happening inside of whether it's the quarterback position, whether or not you can sustain the offensive system that you have, no matter what changes over the next couple years, because change is the name of the game. But this particular offseason is an inflection point, because we'll look back on this offseason in 3 years and say, hey, remember when we were saying goodbye to Luke Altmaier? Well, look at what happened next. We won't know until we get there, right? But this to me is either where Illinois gets catapulted to where it may get over the next 4 years, 3 years, call it whatever, or where it gets, it gets off track, it skids off track, and there needs to be recovery that needs to happen. I don't know what your thoughts on that, but that's just generally how I think about this offseason.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's tough, and every time you have change, there's always that. What if this works out and it's awesome, or what if it doesn't and it's terrible, right? I think what's interesting about the Bobby Hauck hire is you have a guy who has done his fair share of head coaching. It's not a young defensive coordinator who, if he happens to succeed over the first
Yeah,
2 seasons, that he's gonna get up and go somewhere else for a better opportunity. I think that you're in it for the long haul with this guy, and if he's good, then it's gonna be great for this program. If he's bad, could have some pretty big consequences and could result in, I don't wanna say that this program would be derailed, because it wouldn't, and I have a ton of trust in Bielema that he'd be able to turn it around even if things don't go his way
yeah,
with this, cycle of hirings. But you're right in that this is a point where they have the opportunity to be better than just an 8-win team that's going and playing in solid bowl games. I think if this program continues to mount with the resources that Illinois has, being in the Big Ten and having such like a strong community that supports Illinois athletics, and the NIL money that we get here in Champaign, there's no reason why Illinois can't, within the next couple of years, continuously be in the conversation of making that 12 team playoff. So you're right. This is going to be a bit of a bit of like a distance marker, and you're going to see this season whether or not, I think it's gonna matter more than wins or losses. And even if they might not go out and get as many wins as you had expected preseason, as long as they show hope, especially with their young guys, I'm
yeah.
gonna be feeling pretty good about the state of the program.
No question, because obviously we know that one of the most important positions in sports is the quarterback position. I don't think that in 1 year with Caton Hauser, you're going to end up winning a college football play. Let's just be real. And let's be real with the expectations here. And given how much change is happening, we understand that. I think Caden Hauser will be good. But my point being is that this is the first year of this is going to be the one and only year with Caden Hauser. And you will look ahead and you will hopefully have a quarterback that can be the next good one, like Luke Altmaier was over the last 3 seasons. Cooper, it looks like you have something to say.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is that I feel like I
Yeah.
talked to you about this the first time I jumped on the pod before the bowl game in like late December. We
Yeah.
thought at the time that the quarterback in 2026 was going to be Ethan Hampton, and
Mhm.
he was going to have one more year, and it's going to be like your stopgap, your bridge guy. Now
Mhm.
it's a different player in Caden Hauser, who I think has a higher ceiling than Ethan Hampton and can take you to higher places probably if he does well this season. And you're right, he's not the QB of the future, and maybe they're not going to make a college football playoff berth this upcoming season, but he's going to be, hopefully, and what I'm assuming the idea is you're going to get a solid year of quarterback play out of him, where he's just like your everyday decent, competent, pretty good Big Ten quarterback before
Yeah.
you turn the program over to a guy. And I keep going back to Michael Clayton because he is going to be a freshman. He's a 4-star who the Illini were able to get away from some
Yeah.
pretty big programs. And it seemed like the coaching staff really likes him. I would imagine that he'll probably be your starter in 2027, but that's so far away. There could be some random transfer that they go out and grab
Yeah.
for a long period of time. But yeah, I agree with you. He's Caden Hauser. I think he'll be good, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, and just one last thing on that is that the obviously the quarterback position is the most important position in sports, like I said earlier,
Sure.
but you're gonna need like I do think that there's gonna be I almost forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, the thing that I do want to point to though, and then how important, just the final thing that I do want to talk about is that how important. So a couple of days ago at the video board at State Farm Center, they played the video for Josh Whitman and his 10th year here at Illinois and what that kind of means for Illinois, because we obviously weren't here. What were we? We were like maybe 11. You were 10. I was 11 years old when
Yeah.
Josh Whitman got hired.
Yeah.
And to me, I was the biggest thing is that, like, you have to remember how good this Illinois this Illinois athletics program, all of Illinois has become under Whitman. And one thing I realized, I remember writing it down, is that, he's young. He's a relatively young guy. I think he's 49, 50, which I would say is young,
Sounds
but
right.
it's not that old. And we're obviously
He might even
but
be younger than that.
he might even be younger than that. But the point is, I look towards where he's sitting,
47. Sorry, 47.
and yeah, 47 years old, and he's rocking that white beard. And suddenly I'm like, is he old? And it made me kind of think about, hey, how much longer is Illinois going to have? And I'm sure it's going to be for a much more of a while, but you just never know. Life happens. Life comes at you quick. You just don't know. And so I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that in all of our questioning about Illinois football and the next direction and all the things that orbit that world, that we do have to take a second and acknowledge how good Illinois has become under Josh Whitman, and how lucky Illinois fans are, you guys are, to have him. And there's a good reason why Illinois fans tend to be really loyal, and a lot of them sometimes turn the blind eye. But Josh Whitman has been the real deal and has delivered on a lot of promises over the last 10 years.
Yeah, and you hope he's here for a long, long time, and not
Yeah.
only for fans has it been great, but for us who are trying to become sports media, sports journalists, like to walk into a situation where we have
Yeah.
three, even more, but I'm saying all three revenue sports in men's basketball, women's basketball, and football are good programs with really good head coaches that were all hired by Josh Whitman. And I always think back to when our boss at the Champagne Room, Stephen Cohn, he said when he was here, like some of the stories that would do the best were volleyball stories because that was the only program that had like some serious momentum and traction. Nothing against volleyball. It's a great sport. I love it. But I am so grateful that I'm able to, cover the football team, get to watch them win bowl games, get to be a fan of Shauna Green's team, which is going to go to back-to-back NCAA tournaments for the first time in 25 years, and Brad Underwood's basketball team that is year in and year out a serious contender, not only in the Big Ten, but now they're a contender for the national title. So obviously the fans have to be super grateful, but I am so thankful that I kind of walked into this situation.
Yeah, incredibly lucky we are. But that seems like a really good place to leave this, even though we did go a little bit nuclear over there. We're talking about how this football team could end up. But I do think this was a generally good conversation. Good place to end it with some positive vibes, right? Because you
For
don't
sure.
want to end it badly. But yeah. So anything else you got on your mind, Cooper?
Nah, man, I'm looking forward to Illinois basketball playing UCLA.
Yeah.
I hope they beat the crap out of them, and we hear Mick Cronin complain about
Yes.
something in the presser. I'm really looking forward to that.
Man, how much I wish I could be there. But that's right. So subscribe and review if you so please. Really appreciate everybody who's tuned in to these podcasts. Really enjoy doing them. So that's pretty much it. Peace.